Hello, friends. It's me again. It's time for another story. This is from our friend AKBH Writer. I remember some of your stories. Let's read this one. This one's just called Connections. Hi, Moonhorse. Hello. And the always amazing Celestial Herd. It's your friendly neighborhood writer, here with another story. But first, some bad news. This is the last one I have to tell, about myself anyway. We're pretty much all out of material on this serialization of yours truly's life. At least anything that I think is worth sharing right now. Maybe I'll think of some more stuff in the future, but as for this journey to being my best me, well, we've come to the finale. I hope you're all relaxing with a drink or sitting comfortably because I'm bringing you the wholesome today. So let the curtains rise, the orchestra play, and the story begin. On the story of how connections with others made me the person I am today, and also how I discovered Moonhorse, that's me, and became a part of this community. Yes, that's right, it's that kind of story. Enjoy. After 20 years of living, learning, and doing other mundane human things, the most useful thing I've learned is that connections are the most important and most often overlooked part of what makes us who we are. It's my subjective opinion, but it's one I believe in. There's a lot of deep probing theories on what makes us who we are, human existentialism and all that stuff, but I think it's pretty simple. The bonds we share with others are kind of what defines us. Right now, in some other universe, there's a version of me that probably browses incel forums, probably has no friends, and he's not going anywhere in life. I think that version would have been me right now, if not for karate. I wanted to learn it in primary school after a classmate bragged about getting medals for winning competitions. As needy for things as people who pay for exposure, I wanted medals too. That selfish desire was ironically the best dumb thing I decided to go for as a kid. If I didn't, I'd have years of isolation ahead of me. While I only did it for a year at first, I came back after a friend, H actually, from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Nice Guy story, started going to the same club. Since then, I've seen a lot of people come and go, but I stick through until I got my black belt eventually, and then I left for university. I made a lot of different friends as I got older and started teaching the lower grades. I got to mentor and be a positive influence, growing my knowledge and ingraining the mental discipline I gained from my own training. It had its downs, though, as well. There were some times I didn't feel like I could keep going. There's a fair bit of hazing, but overall I came out stronger for it, so I look at it as a negative that turned into a positive. But when I was at my worst, and at a point where I was supposed to be going for my black belt, but felt like I was no more skilled than a white belt my sensei had helped me to be, put me through the ringer when it came to training exercises, but he was patient, believed in me, and he knew what to do to get me back on track. If not for my sensei and all that belief that he had in me when not even I thought I could do it, maybe I would have dropped out and then gone to a really bad place. I don't know how many people read all of my personal stories on the sub, but since this next part is about the lowest point in my life, I was pretty much losing my battles against my anxieties and depression in my first time at university, and my insomnia was so bad that I couldn't sleep for days at a time. Jeez. My mental state rapidly deteriorated. I covered this in another story I put on here a while ago, but thought I'd briefly reiterate that just in case anyone is seeing this for the first time. Basically, because of outside elements such as noise, I got too little sleep for a long time. Schedule was also destroyed, and it did some damage. I'd be awake for 2 days usually before managing to sleep, and at worst it was 4 days without sleep before finally passing out. It's here that I remember getting into creepypasta and no-sleep readings. While I'd heard of Reddit before, this was the first direct encounter I ever had with it. It's a little ironic thinking back now that I was listening to No Sleep while quite literally not being able to sleep. But I'll keep the humor for something more appropriate than this story. At this point, I was really just trying to keep myself together while I was basically falling apart, and a lot of that was just consuming media. Wherever I could, YouTube, video games, anime, etc. I just keep consuming as a coping mechanism to deal with the delirium I fell into. Along the way, I discovered that there were stories about weebs narrated on YouTube. That sort of introduced me more formally to the neckbeards before I watched my first Just Neckbeard Things video. Having heard the weeaboo stories and convention horror stories, some that depicted the gentle sirs, I eventually stumbled upon the neckbeard stories and memes from Reddit, and from there I learned more subreddits, eventually taking the plunge and falling down the old Reddit hole. This was all just so I could cope with the shit that I was dealing with there and then, and I think I discovered it right about the time Reddit reading started to gather attention on YouTube. It wasn't a good time for me at all, but I found myself more isolated than ever from it all. Now I was acquainted and consuming basically every Reddit reading that I could. I was Galactus status in my hunger for more and more of the sweet cringe. Then I discovered the incels, a little before the majority of the internet found them, and a lot before the mainstream news set its sights on any of that. Now by this time I'd already come dangerously close to falling for the red pill not so long before. Fortunately, I wisened up before MGTOW got to me. I was only helped through a bunch of philosophy videos that led me to a lifestyle and general life advice channels that helped me to at least start and stabilize the wreck of my life and make me aware of this nice guy syndrome. Finally helped me break off any lingering mentalities from my days as one, too. So when I saw the black pill and how much more twisted it was than the red pill, I could see it for what it really was, and I didn't want anything to do with that. But they still fascinated me from a psychological standpoint, so I started watching videos. Back to me droning on about why I feel connections are important. I think it was at the beginning of 2018 when I saw something that helped me a lot with how depressed I felt then. I'm a big fan of Linkin Park's music, and it devastated me to learn of Chester Bennington's passing the summer prior. There was a memorial concert that really helped me process things, seeing how many people on stage and how many people in the audience and online whose lives that he's touched and made better with his music is something that really hit me, and the whole thing really helped me process how much this guy and his music meant to my own life and how connected I felt to him, even though I never really met the guy. It helped me so much come to terms with this and made me realize that I can still cherish who and what we care about and just have to keep going forward with our own lives. It's such an important thing for me. Looking back, I'm glad I did this, since I can still listen to the music and feel happy that he existed and helped a lot of people, instead of sad that he's not around anymore. I found Walter Fate in his incel videos at some point, back in the earlier days of his first channel, I think. Love you, Walter. I was still consuming and didn't really help myself, despite knowing that I should have. As I mentioned in another story, I did eventually get out of this, and I'm sleeping better, just to reassure anybody currently worried about my mental state. Fortunately, I'm only mad scientist here, insane now. But then, as my hunger for more cringe and more stories from anywhere grew to the bounds of one who craves tendies and the honey mussy, I eventually found a channel you all know and love by the name of Moonhorse Stories. Aww. Yes, you lovely tiny horses, we're at the good part now. Everything before this was important backstory on the somehow lovable weirdo that I am and what led me to Moonhorse's channel, and I hope I didn't bore anybody out here with this. Guilty confession here, I haven't really used the liking feature that much before Moonhorse's channel, since I basically use it as a bookshelf for videos I need quick access to. I know, I'm weird. No, I know a lot of people who do that, it's totally fine. And I've been lurking YouTube since before Google bought the site back in the good old days of YouTube Broadcast Yourself, just to bring back some nostalgia. Oh, I remember them. A much simpler, better time. I think I was just too anxious to do it, really. Things were also a blur of events when I found Moonhorse, so I can't really remember if it was before or after I started working and getting myself in order. But I mentioned in a previous story that I watch a bi-weekly music live stream, and on a whim, or maybe actually summoned up enough courage to do it, I made a comment that got read out by the performers, and it was a lovely interaction that left me with all the warm fuzzies. That was when I was getting my life back in balance, though, and I'd managed to tone down my consumption of media a lot. Now, a quick disclaimer before the next part. There's a lot of narrators who read from Reddit, and they all have really great narrative voices, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm throwing shade their way here, because they're all good at what they do, and I wish them well. For me, though, aside from their narrative voice and putting out content that alleviated my boredom, there wasn't much beyond that for me. In my personal opinion, there wasn't enough substance to their content beyond the reading, and their authentic personalities didn't really seem to show much. So I was wanting to find somewhere I could interact with people, since I want that warm feeling again, and thought this is the place to do it. After a while, I summoned up courage to comment on a Moonhorse story, and lo and behold, he gave it a heart, and it was the best feeling. I love all you guys' comments. You guys are great. So given what I just said about narrators in general, some might ask, why Moonhorse in particular? Well, for one, he doesn't bend at the knee to YouTube's censorship. He really fights the good fight. I do. Bill Gates be damned. If he wants to talk about something, he's going to swear up a storm, and there's nothing YouTube can do about it. And on that note, a note from the narrator, fuck. 2, he doesn't just read a story and go, or leave a 5-second commentary before the end. He actually gives his honest thoughts to what comes from the heart, whether it be his heart of love or his heart of rage. It's true. And my bullshit detector is state-of-the-art, after many, many redesigns anyway, so you can trust that too. Also the fact that, as of writing this, he's suffering through Empress Teresa for us. Oh god, I am. Pardon. Just goes to show how much he loves his community, and what he chooses to suffer through to entertain us. I mean, you guys voted for it, so I'm gonna do it. Serious talk. He loves this community like nobody else I've ever seen on YouTube. It comes off as everyone is family to him, because in his eyes, everyone is. That's true. That's what I like about Moonhorse, and why it felt different compared to the other YouTubers that do similar things, and honestly, YouTubers in general. Again, I'm not trying to put down on anybody else, and apologies if it felt like that. Everybody's good people. I just find his brand of fabulous, cosmos-shattering, chaotic energy to be the best around, in my humble opinion. Since he's probably going to read this, I hope my gushing here didn't come off as too much. It's shockingly flattering, and I definitely enjoyed it. So, thank you. I feel like a big fucking smile. I think with all that and how community-driven he is, it kind of gave me the courage to make that first comment and open up a little. I don't like commenting if I don't have anything to say, but I always try my best to show my appreciation, since the videos and comments have done me good, along with my occasional interactions with you friendly folk. I'm more accustomed and more comfortable with staying within my own bubble and not talking with people for a while, but at the risk of using this like a jackhammer to this point, connections are important, and it does do good at the very least. Contribute to the conversation and get some social interaction. It helps more than anything I can think of at keeping that positive outlook on things. I think that's why I decided to get my first post out there, damaged but still here, if anyone remembers that story. I wanted to contribute my own experiences, and that's why I kept up with these posts, since I think we can all learn a lot from hearing what everyone has to say. Even if it's just silly or gross antics of the human equivalent of spilled milk. But I was still super anxious when I first posted that story. I was downright terrified of what people might think, and I already had a bad habit of internalizing all my emotional struggles. A kind of miscommunication in my head when I was learning to suppress physical pain when I was studying karate more intensely. I kind of applied it to emotional as well, it seems. I guess it finally had to come out somehow. I didn't know why I posted it at first, and I didn't expect the reaction from Moonhorse that I got. I still can't thank you enough for that. I can't thank you enough for writing one of these wonderful stories, and more for that matter. I don't know why I stopped at one. I'm doing good. I've grown up with all that man-up bullshit, and I guess I just really needed someone to look at the stuff that others have judged me for being fragile and say, it's okay to be you, and you're good enough. I really didn't expect any of this kindness, and I don't know if I deserve it, but that's just how he is. Then I went about sharing other stories about me, my own fiction, and some of it got made into videos, which I'm really happy they did. Like I said, I've held basically all this stuff in for a long time, and anyone who reads the stories about my life, congratulations, you now know more about me than my family does, and probably everyone else I know too. Again, that's on me for not telling anyone, but It's hard when you're expected to have the emotional capacity of a Mr. Spock action figure with a real kung fu grip. I think I just wanted to get all this stuff out here and see if people would listen. Thankfully, all the responses I got from Moonhorse and you lovely people is more than I could ask for, and I don't know if I can express how much all that support means to me since I started contributing to the community. You've all been a great ray of light breaking through the gray clouds to shine down on me for a long while now. The other reason I want to get these stories out is because I want to tell people everything I'd never told anyone else before and see if I'd actually be worthy in another person's eyes of being a friend if they knew everything about me. And I wanted to see if my experiences could in any way help people. Whether if it was to spur courage in someone to share their own issues, offer inspiration to others going through things, or to tell them that they can do it too. Or even if it's just to put a smile on someone's face because of something silly in one of my funnier stories. As long as it had some positive impact in even the smallest way, that's what I wanted. Just so maybe something in my life could have a positive impact on at least one person. Make it worth something, just more than just me, you know? I never wanted any of them to sound like a pity party for myself either, because I've overcome most of my struggles in these stories, and I don't need people to feel sorry for me when I'm doing so much better. To anyone going through anything right now, it doesn't matter what it is, remember that your struggles aren't invalid just because you've heard about someone with a tougher go at it. And that's true. That's very, very true. There's still something you have to contend with and a struggle against, and I believe anyone here has the infinite potential to overcome anything that they need to. And to Moonhorse, yes, thank you. Well, you're very welcome. I don't think I've ever meant those words more, especially through the stories where you've given your own experiences. It's helped a lot to sort myself out, my own opinions and how I feel about certain issues. It's more of a help than you know, and the bonus I get is to learn a lot about everyone involved in this lovely community as well. I won't go and say something silly like you saved me from a bad place, because while it might be a nice thought, you did something much more important. You gave me a hand and helped pull me up to a place where I can finally feel like I can be the me I want to be. You had an important part to play in helping myself, and I don't want you to ever forget that. You're a magnificent unicorn person, you lunar equine, and I think I can safely say thank you to you. I'm definitely feeling that warmth I was searching for when I started taking part in this community. Well, I'm really glad that you are, man. That's fucking great. That's really... This is like the nicest shit. I'm gonna stop. I have to finish reading. Okay. With that last little part, we've reached the end of this story. Yes, I wrote a story as convoluted feels post to the whole community, and I'm not ashamed of it. But for real, it's been an amazing experience that I wouldn't trade for the world. Even though world domination sounds like a fun idea. That's my job. One final thing before I end. I recently wrote a chapter of a story that had my favorite messages I've put in it so far, and I'd like to share. A bare bones, abridged version of it anyway. You can't have it so that people always come along to save you, and you can't let yourself get caught up in a self-destructive cycle either. Things will hurt, and there's nothing wrong with feeling pain. It's natural, but letting yourself get caught up in it is the worst thing you can do. You're the only one who can truly save yourself. You don't have to reject help, and even if it's only someone offering a hand, it can still go a long way. You're the one that has to do it, though. Rise above yourself and see a better way. Count on the people around you if you need them. Do whatever you need to so that you can be you again. If you feel trapped in the past, you don't have to let go. Just hold what's dear to you in your heart while you face the future, and most importantly, go forward with your life. It was the conclusion to a darkest moment character arc, and I hold the message close, too. As you might be able to tell, and it was the character's realization of how despair had dragged her down to the depths and all this other stuff, and only by confronting her own feelings, accepting and reconciling with the past and letting go, and being able to step forward to find a hopeful future, as she did, she finally redeem herself. And just like I said about connections, it was the bonds she made with her friends that ultimately gave her the strength to save herself. I loved writing it and thought it'd be a nice wholesome message to end on. So the curtain closes and we come to an end. Yet this tale isn't over, because my story and I am still living. That was really fucking beautiful, man. And I can't thank you enough for sharing all this with us. I remember your first story. I remember a lot of people's stories, actually. But I'm glad that you decided to share it with us. Sometimes in these segments, I get a little distracted, like I can't think of what to say, and that's probably, because I'm like a nut, but it's not the point. The point is that I definitely feel what you're saying. I think that too. I honestly started this whole thing by posting stupid shit on Reddit myself. I shared some goofy stories that I wrote a long time ago, and sadly they're gone forever, but I've tried to recreate them as best I can. And I legitimately thought nobody was going to look at them, no one's going to read them, nobody gave a shit. And at that point, I was going to give up on pretty much every dream I had. I was just going to go work at a fucking convenience store, and just, that would be it. That would be my life. It'd suck, but, pay the bills, and I would just kind of exist. But it didn't happen that way. A bunch of people actually did like it, and encouraged me to start doing this, to reading stories, and doing weird things, and talking about stuff online, and that's how I started all this. It's all just because I like meeting people, and I like that you guys are... I like that you're here. I like that everything seems to be working out, and you guys are really happy. That means a lot to me, that this whole thing is actually going somewhere, and that we're kind of, like a family. And yeah, I don't... as you mentioned about the YouTube thing, I try not to do that. I don't want to do the YouTube thing. The typical YouTuber thing. Smash the like button and shit like that. The only time I've ever really asked you guys to interact with something is, one, because it would fuck up YouTube's algorithm, and that's funny. And two, on more than one occasion, I've honestly thought of asking you guys to either really like something overly, or to leave a shit ton of comments, just because it'd be really fucking funny to see YouTube be like, why do you have so much of this? And it's like, yeah, well, because my friends did it, and fuck you, it'd be funny. I legit just like fucking with things like that because I think it's hilarious. Not for any other reason. Just, watch them freak out. It's funny. Seriously, though, YouTube's a bunch of assholes. Fuck Susan. But, yeah, I don't want to be censored. I don't want to do the ruled, monetized thing, and that's why I do the things that I do with the super chats and the live streams and the Patreon thing, and the merch. I keep forgetting that, but there is a merch shop. Because I don't want to fucking be what they have decided YouTube should be. This, sterile, kid-friendly, you can't talk about anything that isn't, that isn't the way they want it. If I can give you an example, this is kind of turning into a thing about me being mad at YouTube, but also to point out there's a reason. I'm getting somewhere with this, I think. Kinda. There's literally a, you guys probably already know about Chris Hansen's investigation into Onision. I'm not going to talk about Onision or anything, maybe in another video, but this is the thing, right? Chris Hansen's channel, much like a lot of other channels on YouTube, does the whole monetized thing, which he's an investigative journalist, and he should have a right to, if he wants to put ads and monetize his videos. I mean, motherfucker worked hard on it. He should be allowed to do that. He and his team should totally be allowed to do that. And they do, and that's fine, except that one of the words he's not allowed to say, okay, is he's not allowed to say pedophile or predator. The guy who was literally on a show called To Catch a Predator. And apparently you're also not allowed to say rape, even if it's literally talking about the crime. So the investigative journalist who works with law enforcement is not allowed to talk about the crimes that law enforcement are reporting on. Funny, huh? It's that old algorithm working for you. It's great. This video, I'll probably get in trouble for saying that, but I don't monetize these, so YouTube can suck my dick. So, yeah, that's why I don't do it. Is because otherwise they do that shit where you have to be, sanitized and YouTube friendly. Where everybody has to be, oh golly gosh, guys, that's a hard story. Oh, that's a heckin' chonker. And I don't want to fucking be that. Fuck that shit. You guys didn't come here for that. That's not why anybody comes here. Fuck that shit. So, so yes, I'm going to continue to do this and be open and honest, and the honest fucking replies that I get from all of you, the reactions, the real fucking, like people who show up and say things and we do stuff, that means more to me than, a million fucking bullshit subscribers. Oh, but you could get a button. Yeah. I want, legit, I actually want the silver play button, but I want a bootleg one. I want somebody to, make one, or, I really want one that looks like that with the thing, but instead of being, 1 million subscribers, it just still says fuck on YouTube. That's the award I want. I want the fucking trash award, because fuck this. So, this has gotten off on, a weird tangent, but, yeah, I fucking love you guys. This story made me, really happy, and I'm really happy. I'm, super fucking... I get a huge fucking smile on my face right now. I fucking love you guys so much, and that's why I started doing the streams, because I like hanging out with you every Saturday. Just fuck around and play video games. We totally need that. And talk about terrible things. I mean, it's my channel. We gotta talk about terrible things. It's like a rule. So, with all that, I'm gonna go and do something. Probably gonna, eat something. I'm hungry. I haven't eaten today. So, I'm gonna go do that. And I'll see you guys later. Okay, I love you guys. Have a wonderful whatever time of day it is, and be safe out there. Bye! Thank you everybody for watching, and a special thanks to my Moonfriendio Babbsy-kun for, being that. If you would like to donate to my Patreon, and maybe even join this tier, you can do that by going to, Patreon. And if you have your own story you'd like to send in, you can send it to r/Moonhorse Stories. And I also have a merch store if you'd like to buy something there. The links to all that and more are in the description down below. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye!